Hello.
Good morning, Ambassador.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. How are you, sir?
Good, good.
First of all, this is Sid Afshar from the TV program Countdown. It's
Okay.
meant countdown to the regime change. We're all
Mm-hmm.
hoping, and I sincerely like to thank you for taking the time talking to us.
No, glad to do it.
Thank you, sir. My first question is, given the current situation of the Iranian government in the international community, how do you assess them?
Well, I think the government in Tehran has made it clear it wants to have a disproportionate influence in the region and in the broader world, and to accomplish that, it's relied on two basic techniques. One is its pursuit of nuclear weapons, and the other is its support for terror. And I think some regimes understand what Tehran is up to, others do not. And right now, I think Tehran's influence is expanding. I think the regime is pushing out, and the Europeans' negotiation on the nuclear program is allowing them to do it, unfortunately. And I think the irresolution of the United States is also allowing them to do it. So at the moment, I think the government in Iran is expanding its zone of influence, and that, if not corrected, will have unfortunate effects.
Exactly. And Ambassador, how do you actually see the Iranian regimes standing within their own country, within their own people? What is your assessment of that?
Well, my judgment is that actually the regime is on pretty weak ground, and I would say for three reasons, basically. First, the mullahs have made a complete mess of the economy, dating back really to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and it's manifested in a number of ways: bad pricing policy, misallocation of resources, inadequate investment in the oil and natural gas reserves, and I think you can see the consequences of this economic mismanagement all around the country, and I think there's a high level of dissatisfaction with the people, not caused by the sanctions that the Security Council or others have imposed, but the cumulative effect of bad economic judgment over the years, number one. Number two, I think the young people of Iran, who are educated, sophisticated, can see the possibility of a different life. They can see it all around them. And, you know, the population of Iran, by some accounts, is two-thirds or more under the age of 30. So when you talk about the young people, you're talking about a real majority of the population. And then finally, I think there's substantial ethnic dissatisfaction from ethnic minorities around the country. So all in all, when you put it together, I think this regime is on pretty shaky ground if you ever gave the Iranian people a chance to voice their own opinions freely.
Precisely. Ambassador, as long as we're talking about the Iranian people, I'd like to ask, I'd like to discuss, share with you a myth that exists among Iranians, and you've probably heard of it before. Iranian people, in majority, they think that the revolution that you mentioned in '79 was created and tailored by the Europeans and Americans and the British, and that the reason that this regime is still on because of the support of Europeans and Americans and the British, because I don't know why the reason is, and that so they feel they're completely helpless, and no matter what they do, their efforts is not going to be counted, because people who brought this regime, when in time comes, they would also take them off. So they feel totally powerless and helpless. How do you address this empathy or the situation that exists in Iran?
Well, I think that the United States in particular needs to do a much better job of public diplomacy than we've done certainly for the last 7 or 8 years, because, number one, the United States has no quarrel with the people of Iran. Quite the contrary. The problem is with this regime, which is unrepresentative, unreflective of what I think the real majority of Iranian citizens want. So I think trying to explain to the people of Iran that we do hope for the day that they can select their own government and not have the government currently in power in Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my own view is that we should go beyond that and provide assistance both publicly and non-publicly to opponents of the regime in Tehran. Now, this is a very controversial subject, I know, and I think it's something that you have to do with great care because we don't want to give Ahmadinejad or the other clerics in control in Tehran the ability to say that honest Iranian citizens or members of the Iranian diaspora are somehow being paid by the United States. That's not it at all. What I think we ought to try and do is assist legitimate opposition groups who are frozen out by the regime in Tehran to allow them to try and explain their views within the country and to tell the people of Iran, the dissatisfied people, that they have alternatives. I think that's a complex task for the U.S. and hopefully others to try and do, but I think that's really where the long-term solution to this problem really lies.
Exactly. And as you know, Ambassador, recently Javier Solana met with the Iranian officials and gave him the package which was offered by the world power 5+1. And the Iranian done everything but just totally rejecting it, but yet still Mr. Solana is planning another trip there. I understand that you're not Mr. Solana, so I can't ask you directly, but what is your assessment of this situation? Do you think the regime is buying time, or is it really an opportunity of a breakthrough here whereby they would stop and dismantle their nuclear facilities?
I don't think there's any chance that the regime will ever give up its nuclear weapons program voluntarily. I think they see it as a trump card against their perceived enemies in the region and the world as a whole, and really as a trump card as to why they and the Revolutionary Guards continue to hold power. They have demonstrated, the regime has demonstrated consistently during the past 5 years of European efforts to negotiate that they use the negotiations to buy time. Normally, typically, time is on the side of the proliferator. Time gives the proliferator, the would-be proliferator, the ability to overcome many complex scientific and technological obstacles on the way to a nuclear weapons program. So anything that gives the proliferator more time and keeps things calm at an international level so people are not concerned about the progress being made is a plus for the proliferator. That's what the European efforts have done in effect for the past 5 years. So when you hear people say, well, what do we have